On the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from last time. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Motion made by Bruce, seconded by Mary Ann. Any discussions, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we have citizens' communication. If there's anybody out in the audience that would like to address the planning commission, anything in general, stand up to the podium and give us your name and address. Nobody is there. All right. So we're done. Our first development review to consider is Pavliska subdivision number 1, re-subdivision number 1. We'll hear Jaren's staff report now.
Good afternoon. This first agenda item is a final plat approval of the Pavliska subdivision number 1, re-subdivision number 1. This was initially approved back in November of 2014. It did expire recently, and it is back for a resubmittal. It is a proposed plat of 1.441 acres. Water service will be provided by an existing 8-inch line along West Crestwood Drive. This plat does require an extension of public water within the development. Sanitary sewer service to be provided by an existing 6-inch line along West Crestwood. This does require an extension of a private sewer line within the development, which will tie into the public sewer in Crestwood. The proposed plat contains existing single-family residence on Lot 1R, and they wish to subdivide it into 1 single-family residential lot and 10 duplex two-family residential lots. A variance was approved by Planning Commission on September 18th, 2014, and that is still valid. If you have any questions, I can answer them, or the consultant is here if you have any questions as well.
Can you refresh, the variance was for the road width, or what was it for?
To allow a private access easement instead of, in lieu of a public right-of-way.
If I recall, there was the concern over the parking. There was going to be a fire lane painted. I think that was a concern back then, if I recall,
And I believe that was all addressed.
for emergency access. Still
Resolution.
have that concern, but, oh well, it's done.
The applicant wish to address anything, or? Maybe. Awesome.
Guys,
Hello.
it's Monica Pretty, Urban Engineering, 2004 North Commerce Street. In regards to the fire lane, whenever we discussed that, I believe that was during the preliminary plat and all of that when we were looking at it. Whenever we came back and we resubmitted, what we did, and it's tied to this, we provided an additional layout, and there are some more easements and different stuff in there. If you look at your plat that you have before you, you're going to see a non-buildable area that's going to back up to that Lot 1R. We're providing off-street parking in that area, so that way it is going to be crowded in there. But in order to get cars that may be inside, visitors, out of that fire lane, we're going to be providing, several different parking spaces in there. It's small. We're going to be giving like 11 parking spaces, and then there's an HOA, and there's 2 parking spaces. They're going to be outside each residence, so we think we've got it handled, given the small number of lots.
I think that sounds agreeable.
Yeah. I like it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, they are going to be 0 lot lines.
Correct?
They're duplexes, so they're
Yeah,
going to have
duplexes,
share that
okay.
common wall,
Yeah.
but yes, it's going to be
There wasn't going to be
crowded.
much on-street parking for any type of guest and what have you in the congested area for emergency access. That was a concern I have then. It's still a concern I have now.
Yes, sir. But it is going to be platted in there to where it's
I see that.
non-buildable, so that's what it's going to be for.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
I move to approve the final plat.
I have one more question. What about, when we talked, is the vested issue applicable in this case? No?
It has a variance, and so the variance does not have an expiration date, so it's valid. So it meets all applicable rules and regulations, and since it's a final plat, it's more of a ministerial type approval.
Variance for this plat then? Okay. Good question, John.
Any more discussion?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
All right, Mike seconds the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Our second agenda item
Yes.
is to consider an approval of an extension to the recording requirements for the final plat for Lake Forest, Section 1, Phase 6. Lake Forest Section 1, Phase 6 was a final plat that was approved by Planning Commission on the June 18th, 2015 meeting. Construction has not begun on this project due to changes in the financial environment and housing market. The owner is requesting an extension to the final plat's 2-year recording/filing deadline. An extension of 2 years would be a standard extension length, as it is the amount of time allotted for a new plat to be filed. Staff does recommend approval of this extension to the record, due to the conditions in the area remaining unchanged. I can answer any questions you may have.
I don't have any questions. Does the applicant wish to say anything, or? No?
I recommend approval.
All right. We've got a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, then our latest development review to consider is a preliminary plat extension for Capstone Estates, and we will hear Jaren's report.
The preliminary plat for Capstone Estates was approved by Planning Commission at the June 21st, 2007 meeting. Construction of the first phase and second phase of the project are complete, and work on the next phase has started. The final plat of Phase 2, Section 1 was amended in February of 2017 and is valid for a period of 2 years until February of 2019. But construction work is ongoing, and the plat is expected to be filed well before the expiration. Extensions for the preliminary plat were previously approved in 2012, 2013, 14, 15, and 16. The owner is requesting a sixth 1-year extension to the preliminary plat's 5-year effective period. Staff believes development conditions in the area have changed since the preliminary plat was approved in 2007, specifically with the close availability of water and sewer. These changes in the area are the reason the requested extension can't be approved by staff and must be forwarded to Planning Commission. The Planning Commission must determine whether to extend the preliminary plat for an additional year or to allow it to expire. Staff does not recommend approving the sixth 1-year extension. We can answer any questions, and the applicant is also here if you have any questions for them.
I'm confused. Okay, you're not recommending it? I'm confused with what we did the last time. I thought we recommended, or y'all recommended the last time.
Well, by virtue of it coming to the Planning Commission, staff does not feel that it meets the same, the conditions are the same to
Okay,
warrant the extension.
I remember. Okay. All right.
Do you want to address anything, Dr. Rampey?
This is the same situation we had last year, where it was not recommended by staff that it be extended, and it was it was voted on by you unanimously to extend it. The rationale I argued last year was that it is in the city's best interest to have smaller lots. We plan to go ahead and develop the area with either 1 acre or half-acre lots, and Jared Mayfield, who was the director of planning, asked me at one point a few years back about doing half-acre lots, and I told him I thought that was good, and he says it's in the best interest of the city. Well, we're not, nothing's changed other than at that time the city didn't feel like it had the money to bring the water line or a sewer line out to where we were developing. Water is across the street, so it's not a difficult thing to get water to that area, and that would allow half-acre lots instead of doing a 1 acre lot area. And that means double the tax for the city in the long run. So I get more lots, admittedly, but the benefit to the city, I think, is far greater than the fit to me because it's a huge number of more lots over a long period of time, generations possibly. So I always argue for higher density. It means a healthier city, greater tax base. And so that's why I'm requesting the extension.
So are you saying that you would, that you're not averse to bringing in the water and the sewer connecting to the city systems?
No, I'm not adverse to that at all. It's across the street, so it's not an issue any longer.
Okay, because I do feel like that is the whole, precedent for needing to have the discussion is because, we reassess this every year because conditions have changed. And whenever this was first platted,
Right.
There might not have been that connection, but now we do have that connection. And so I guess maybe a question for the city would be, in order to make sure that there is connection to city water and sewer, does it need to be, does the plat need to be, the extension need to be denied in order to make sure that's incorporated in here? Or is it feasible to extend it, and make sure that that still happens?
Well, if water and sewer were extended through this preliminary plat, I'm not sure that we would consider it being in substantial conformance. So a final plat has to be in substantial conformance to the preliminary plat. And so if you are cutting down the lots to half the size and providing water and sewer, I believe that's a little out of the scope of substantial conformance. And
Yeah.
so we would ask for a new preliminary plat to be submitted that would reflect that.
Okay.
So then the new preliminary plat would be whatever's current for 2017. Okay. Any discussions or
Yeah.
questions for Dr.
Let me
Rampey?
ask one question. So if the preliminary plat that we're being asked to extend today were submitted to you today, it would be not approved because it would require the sewer.
Right,
Okay.
correct.
The waiting game has run out.
Gotcha.
Well, I think that it's in the city's best interest to make sure that the water and the sewer does get connected through here and that we have a mechanism for that. We don't want to have a situation where if that doesn't happen, we end up with leapfrog development where we don't have the connection to the water and the sewer because somebody else didn't do it, then the next person can't connect to it. So we wouldn't want to have that happen, I don't think.
Is that correct? I'm not sure that analogy you just gave is correct.
So I guess since we already have so much of the development right now that's on the sewer and the water with that block, let's see, with phase 1 and phase 3, but, let's see.
No, there's no
Block-
water and sewer over
yeah.
there now.
No, there's no
Yeah,
water.
there's no,
water
yeah,
and sewer
sorry,
there
I mean,
now.
like, they'll have
It's
water.
across the street.
Yeah, they
It's
have,
across North
yeah,
Side.
so on Wellspring, they have water wells and septic systems,
That's
right?
correct.
And so if, on the south side, for instance, if there isn't water and sewer through there, then if that doesn't happen, that water and sewer doesn't come through here from the city, then that could essentially block out that area so that the next person who develops behind that doesn't have the connection to the water and sewer on north side because that area has basically caused a block there. You'd have to leapfrog, and that's what I mean by the term leapfrog
Yeah,
development.
well, understand that state law demands that you have water or sewer to do half-acre lots. And so our plan will be to do 1-acre lots unless we do a deal with the city. I haven't been back down to talk. Jared is now gone, and so I haven't talked to any of the city staff about this. But my hope is, because it is better for the city to do smaller lots. 1-acre lots are great for some folks, but in terms of the health of a city financially, and if you take the long view, generations, it is always better to have smaller lots.
I have a question. Since we did this last year, has a line been extended? I guess it has been extended a little further, or?
Not
So
since last
nothing's
year.
changed from last year.
From last year.
Are you on hold now on developing? Because you're required to do a 1-acre plus lot for sewer and.
Well, we're
water.
actually building 3 right now. We're fixing to start another one. We'll have 4 going here in another week. On the backside, it'd be to the west of Wellspring. that street is, now paved and water, and the electric and gas and all is all in now on that part. So this is really for this, that is on the east of it, that's closer to the town. Across the street from Tuscany.
The block 2 and block 4 section?
It's on the bottom of the screen, the area that's, has the diagonal lines on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, okay.
That area
I'm looking
is
at
where
the
we would
plat.
go next with 1 acre
Let me
lots.
ask one more question, because I am a little confused.
I'm confused.
This is a preliminary plat. So the next step would be to file the final plat. So what you're telling us is if the final plat were filed as it was filed as a preliminary plat, it's not going to be approved.
No, if you
No, it would be
extend the preliminary plat.
Right.
Then the final plat could be filed because you have a valid preliminary plat, and if the final plat matched the preliminary plat.
I
then-
thought you said the circumstances have changed to the extent that the final plat wouldn't match
No,
because
that's-
of water and sewer.
That's why staff cannot approve the preliminary plat. So as long as you have the preliminary plat extension, as long as you have a valid preliminary plat, your final plat, so long as it's in substantial conformance with that preliminary plat, can be filed. So the question tonight is, does the commission wish to extend that preliminary plat for another year? By doing that, you then allow him to file final plats that are in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat that you're looking at tonight.
It's the preliminary plat, it's the conditions that applied when the preliminary plat was initially approved, which was what, 20?
10 years
10 years
Yes,
ago,
yes, yes.
I personally think it's a little late in the game
But
to do another extension.
So I think it's been about 10 years and things have changed. The water and sewer lines have changed, and I feel like we need the mechanism to make sure that that connection and stuff happens with future phases of development.
for what it's worth, nothing has changed since last year.
I
And
was-
we
I was
approved.
not last year, so
Well, I
hi.
understand, but some of these people were.
There were concerns brought up then as well, though. How many
Yes.
times it was
No,
going
I
to be
agree,
extended.
I agree. I think I
And-
brought some up.
Yeah,
When is enough enough?
and that's when we had gone back to staff asking if there was ever going to be a limit on extensions, number of times they could be applied
Yes.
for, would there be penalties for them, and that deal. And I don't think we've
Sure.
ever come up with anything
No,
as far as
Julie
that.
wrote a letter, and we
Yeah, we
did.
discussed it at
Yeah.
one of our meetings.
But as far as, we don't have a limit on the number of extensions that can be
No.
filed. Technically, and I don't think by law we can. That's what I believe, we can't prevent them, if I recall.
All right.
Well, I haven't
have
had a
anything
chance to go
else?
down and talk to city staff about this, but reality is, I still think it's in the city's best interest, and frankly, everyone, I've had a number of people, Jared, John here, our former city manager, everyone's told me they knew it was a mistake for me not to get water when I first wanted to get water, because they could do half-acre lots, and that would allow a greater tax base on these acres. And so everyone recognizes that's the math is simple.
Yes,
That
sir.
if you can double the number of taxable lots in the same area, it's good for a city. And so that's still my goal, to do that on the other side. And so I'm happy to go talk to the city staff about that and see if we can make that arrangement.
All right.
So has that conversation happened in the past year then, since the last?
It happened when Jared Mayfield was here, and he asked me, he was the one who approached me about doing that. And I said, I'm all for it, that's fine. But then I think Lynn Short said we just didn't have the funds to bring the water in, and the water was too far away. I actually suggested, well, let's just do a temporary line that meets state law. That's a 4-inch line. He said, no, he felt like it needed to be the permanent larger line. But the larger lines are now there, so it's not a.
But they were there last year,
Yeah, they were
as
there
I
last year,
understand.
yeah, And the recommendation from staff last year was not to get an extension, and then the planning commission voted unanimously to give the extension based on, I think, the argument that it is good for the city.
But I think the extension too was based on having all those conversations and whatnot, and it seems like that hasn't necessarily come to fruition, so.
No, I don't think we had any discussion of that.
Provide some clarification.
You may.
I want to clarify the discussions that have occurred regarding water and sewer, but primarily water for this property. I'm going to go back to at least 2014. The context of the discussions between Mr. Mayfield and myself and the developer were in the context of the city attempting to negotiate a voluntary annexation of the remaining undeveloped portions of this property. We were willing to enter into a development agreement with Mr. Rampey to allow water to be extended only without sewer, which is not typical of what we do, but we were satisfied with that in exchange for an agreement to petition for voluntary annexation for all the remainder of the undeveloped portions. The first proposal that we made, this was prior to the phase that is on the west side of the property being developed. Our first proposal was that the developer could extend water from Ball Airport Road up north side, and it would be an oversized main. The city would provide a reimbursement of the oversized cost, and then the developer would extend water into the subdivision. He chose not to accept that option based on the cost, the upfront cost, and I would assume the total cost. We said, okay, we can live with that. Continue to develop the west side in 1 acre lots as you have an approved preliminary plat to do. And again, this is 3 years ago. We came back with a second proposal, which was for the portion on the east side of the existing development, whereby the city would extend at our expense at a cost of approximately $200,000 an oversized water line from Ball Airport Road to the proposed entrance of this phase of the subdivision, or where I guess the line would come across from Northside Road to this phase of the subdivision. Again, Mr. Rampey chose not to accept that option and went forward with the request to the Planning Commission back in that year, 2014, to request an extension of the preliminary plat, which was approved. And again, the subsequent years, it has continued to be approved. So I want to clarify that, sure, if Mr. Rampey if you approve an extension for another year, and he wants to come back and negotiate with the city about a voluntary annexation petition conditioned upon the extension of water, we are willing to discuss that. But the offer of the city paying to extend that oversized main from Ball Airport Road to the entrance to the subdivision is no longer on the table. And I cannot speak for the city manager as to whether we would put it back on the table. We don't have funds available today for it. So if he wants to extend water only and replat the remainder of this property into half-acre lots, it's at his cost. And he has indicated in the past that he's not willing to bear that cost. So the reality is we've been trying for 5 or 6 years to work out a way to annex this subdivision. Not because of the tax revenue. When it comes to ad valorem taxes, annexing a residential subdivision there's no net gain. Okay, it's going to cost us as much to provide services to that subdivision as we're going to get in ad valorem taxes in return. And it will take decades for us to recoup the cost of extending water and sewer. Our only purpose for annexing this subdivision is to avoid getting cut off from being able to annex further north from our current city limit line. That's been our position from day one, since we had started having these discussions, and it continues to be our position. The only thing that has changed in the last year is a year ago we had a project on the 5-year capital improvement program to do a major utility, primarily sanitary sewer upgrade to extend oversized sanitary sewer to the point that it could serve this property, the entire subdivision and subdivisions in the future beyond this area. During the last CIP discussion, City Council removed that project from the 5-year plan, funding window in the CIP. It came down in priority. Other higher priority projects pushed it out. And so there is not an annexation project on the horizon, certainly not within the next 5 years, that will allow us to serve this subdivision with sewer. We can serve it with water today, but that is not at our expense. Again, it would have to be a voluntary annexation, and it would be up to the developer to do that. So it will probably be many years before we're going to have sewer capacity for this area because that project's been put off. It's a very expensive project. If my memory is correct, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million. It involves a significant sanitary sewer lift station in addition to those oversized mains that have to come essentially all the way from Millette Road. So just there may be more information than you wanted, but I want you to have the background and understand every time we come to this discussion every year, we're reminded that staff has told Mr. Rampey that we would prefer the half-acre lots. Again, those conversations need to be kept in context. And our only concern, our only goal was to affect an agreement, a development agreement to achieve voluntary annexation of this property. If that's not on the table, then it's not on the table. So we're down to, you can extend this plat for another year. He can develop the property, the remainder of it, with 1-acre lots. If you choose to do that, that's your right to do. The reason we cannot do that is the ordinance is black and white. If conditions have changed since the time of the preliminary plat approval, the staff cannot approve an extension. That's why it's in your hands.
All right, thank you very much
you,
for
sir.
that. All right, anything else, anybody? All right,
Well, I move
well,
to,
is there a motion to approve or deny this preliminary plat?
I move to deny the extension of the preliminary plat.
Anybody have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other business, Jaron?
We have our monthly development report. This month, we received 3 minor plats, 1 major plat, which was the Pavliska, and 2 site plans. In terms of permits, we had 2 residential single-family permits for a total valuation of $276,000. This is compared to 7 last year at a value of $1 million. We had 1 new commercial at $825,000 valuation compared to 1 last year at $775,000. 12 commercial addition repairs for $1.6 million compared to 32 last year at $847,000. We issued 122 mechanical electrical permits, and we collected $40,000 in permit fees compared to $54,000 at this time last year. If you have any questions on that, I can answer any. Otherwise, that's all I have.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you, Jaron.
Thank you.
Any items for the commissioners?
I have,
Any questions?
I'm sorry to go back to that. They can't, can he appeal that decision to the council?
We're done.
I
It's fine.
thought that was,
No.
okay.
Yes.
All right, I wasn't sure.
All right. Then at this time, we will adjourn. Thank y'all very much.
Thank
and
y'all.
Appreciate everything.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.